In a world where everyone screams to be heard, there is a weapon that the highly sensitive person possesses and never knew how to use. Silence. Not the silence of someone who has nothing to say. The silence of someone who chose to stop responding. Neuroscience from 2024 and 2025 has just confirmed something Jung predicted nearly a century ago. Narcissists are hypersensitive to being ignored. And when you stop talking, their brain registers this as physical pain. Literally the same brain regions that process pain are activated. The ventral anterior cingulate cortex, the insular, the subgenual cortex. Huberman explained why this response is so intense, and Jung mapped exactly what happens when the empath finally decides to go silent. The narcissist was never prepared for this weapon. And you probably did not even know you possessed it. For years you tried to explain, tried to argue, tried to show how you felt, tried to make the narcissist understand the impact of their words, and nothing worked. Every attempt at communication was used against you. Every vulnerability you showed was stored as ammunition. Every time you opened your mouth, the game continued. Because while you were talking, you were still playing their game. You were in the territory they dominate. Verbal manipulation, narrative control, the distortion of everything you say. Jung observed this pattern decades ago. He noticed that the narcissist needs one thing above all others: reaction. It does not matter if it is positive or negative. What matters is that you react, because the reaction proves they still have power over you, proves they still occupy space in your mind, proves you are still available for the game. But what happens when you stop reacting? What happens when instead of arguing, you simply remain silent? What happens when instead of defending you respond with nothing? Recent research in social neuroscience answered this question definitively. Silence is the only thing for which the narcissist has no defense, because they cannot distort words that were never spoken, cannot manipulate a conversation that does not exist, cannot control a narrative you refuse to create. And this sends them into panic, measurable neurological panic. In 2024 and 2025, a series of studies published in journals like Journal of Personality and Social Psychology and Nature Reviews Psychology revealed something fascinating about narcissists and social exclusion. Narcissists do not just feel more excluded than normal people. They are genuinely excluded more frequently. And more importantly, they are hypersensitive to any signal of exclusion or rejection, even ambiguous signals, signals that a normal person would not even notice. For the narcissist, these signals trigger intense alarms in the brain. Researchers discovered that this creates a vicious cycle. Narcissistic behavior causes real rejection from people around them. This rejection intensifies narcissistic traits, which cause more rejection, and so on. But here is what is really interesting for you who are highly sensitive. Your silence is not just an absence of words. It is a signal of exclusion that the narcissist brain cannot ignore. Huberman explained in his podcasts about stress that the human nervous system is constantly monitoring social signals from the environment. When these signals indicate acceptance, cortisol drops and the body relaxes. When they indicate rejection or exclusion, cortisol spikes. The internal alarm system is activated. For the narcissist who already has a hypersensitized rejection detection system, your silence is like a fire alarm that will not stop ringing. They cannot simply ignore it. Every second you do not respond is registered. Every message left in the void is a wound. Every time you look through them as if they did not exist, their brain processes this as real physical pain. Jung wrote extensively about the power of silence and conscious withdrawal. He observed that in a noisy world where everyone fights to be heard, silence is the most devastating weapon that exists. But not just any silence. Not the silence of passivity, not the silence of fear, the silence of conscious strategic withdrawal. Jung explained that while you react, you are still trapped in the game. Every reaction feeds the pattern. Every response gives energy to the other. But when you withdraw in silence, something fundamental changes. You stop being a target, stop being a mirror for the projections of the other. Stop being a blank canvas where the narcissist can project whatever they want. Jung used the term conscious unavailability to describe this state. It is not escape, it is not avoidance, it is a deliberate choice not to participate, and this choice is what terrifies the narcissist most. Because the narcissist needs you available, needs you there to receive their projections, needs you to react so they can react to your reaction. It is a system that depends entirely on your participation, and when you withdraw in silence, the system collapses. There is nothing for them to manipulate. There is nothing for them to distort. There is nothing. And nothing is what the narcissist fears most, because in the nothing they are alone with themselves. And with themselves is exactly where the narcissist does not want to be. Neuroimaging studies show exactly what happens in the brain when a person experiences social exclusion. The same regions that process physical pain are activated. The anterior cingulate cortex, especially the ventral and subgenual portions, the anterior insular, the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. Researchers discovered that slow waves of neural activity in these regions are larger during rejection events than during neutral events. And the most fascinating part, the more distressing the person reports the rejection experience, the greater the neural activity in these pain areas. Now imagine this amplified, because this is exactly what happens with the narcissist. Studies from 2024 and 2025 show that people with narcissistic tendencies have an increased sensitivity to signals of exclusion. Their alarm system triggers more easily, and triggers with more intensity. A daily follow-up study over 14 days found that narcissists report experiences of ostracism significantly more than non-narcissistic people. Part of this is because they really are excluded more frequently due to their behavior, but part is because they perceive exclusion even in ambiguous situations where it does not exist. Their brain is constantly searching for signs of rejection, and your silence is an unequivocal signal. There is no ambiguity in silence. There is no way to interpret it otherwise. Silence says clearly, you do not deserve my energy. And this message pierces all narcissistic defenses. The narcissist is a master of verbal manipulation. They spent their entire life perfecting this skill. They know how to distort your words. They know how to make you doubt what you said. They know how to turn your defense into an attack. They know how to make you look like the problem. While you speak, they have material to work with. Every word that comes out of your mouth is a tool they can use, but silence gives them nothing to use. Silence is an empty field where their tactics do not work. They may try to provoke you to break the silence, may try to blame you for the silence, may try to make the silence seem abusive on your part. But as long as you maintain silence, none of this works. Because you are not defending the silence, you are simply in silence. It is impossible to distort something that does not exist. Jung observed that the narcissist goes into panic when you stop responding. Not because they miss you, but because your silence takes away their narrative control. While you speak, they control the story. They decide what your words mean. They decide how the conversation will be remembered. They decide who is the villain and who is the victim. But when you are in silence, they lose this ability. There is no story for them to control. There are no words for them to reinterpret. There is no narrative for them to manipulate, and this deeply destabilizes them. Huberman explained in detail how the stress system works in the human brain. Cortisol is the central hormone in this system. It is not inherently bad. In fact, it is essential for giving us energy and focus, but when poorly regulated, it causes damage. The narcissist problem is that their stress system is already chronically poorly regulated. They live in a state of constant hypervigilance, constantly monitoring threats to the ego, constantly looking for signs that they are not admired enough, constantly fearing being exposed as the empty person they secretly believe themselves to be. When you ignore them with your silence, you confirm this deepest fear. The fear of not being important, the fear of being irrelevant, the fear that without the admiration and reaction of others, they do not really exist. And this triggers a cascade of stress in their brain. Cortisol spikes. The amygdala becomes hyperactive. The prefrontal cortex that would normally regulate these reactions is already overloaded. They enter a state that Huberman would describe as dysregulated stress response, and there is nothing they can do to relieve it, because relief would come from your response, and you are not responding. You are in silence, and the silence continues. Every hour that passes without response increases the pressure. Every day that passes without reaction intensifies the panic. Their nervous system is screaming for relief, and relief does not come. Because you finally understood the power you always had, the power to simply not respond, Before understanding this, most highly sensitive people make a crucial mistake. They think that if they explain well enough, the narcissist will understand. They think that if they show enough of their emotions, something will change. They think that communication is the key to resolving the conflict. This would work with a normal person. Normal people respond to sincere communication. Normal people feel empathy when you show vulnerability. Normal people want to resolve conflicts fairly. But the narcissist is not a normal person in this sense. For them, your communication is not a bridge to understanding. It is information for manipulation. Every time you explain how you feel, they learn exactly how to hurt you more efficiently. Every vulnerability you show is stored for future use. Every attempt at genuine connection is used as a weapon. Jung warned about this in his writings on projection. He explained that the more emotionally available you are, the more you become a blank canvas for the projections of the other. The highly sensitive person by nature is extremely emotionally available, and this makes them the perfect target for the narcissist. But silence changes everything. When you stop talking, you stop offering material. When you stop explaining, you stop being manipulated. When you stop trying to be understood, you finally protect yourself. It is not that silence resolves the narcissist. Narcissism is a deep pattern that rarely changes, but silence resolves you. It takes you out of the game, places you in a spot where narcissistic tactics cannot reach you, gives you back the power you unknowingly gave away every time you opened your mouth. When the highly sensitive person finally embraces silence, something profound happens inside them. First comes the difficulty. Because the highly sensitive person was conditioned to respond, conditioned to explain, conditioned to try to make others understand, conditioned to keep the peace at any cost. Silence feels wrong at first, feels cruel, feels like you are doing something wrong. But this is exactly the programming the narcissist installed in you. They taught you that you are responsible for their emotions, that if they are angry, it is because you did something wrong, that if they are sad, you need to fix it, that if they punish you with silence, you need to beg for attention. But when you are the silent one, the dynamic completely inverts. Suddenly, it is them who has no control. It is them desperately searching for a reaction. It is them who is lost without the material you always provided. It is you who is at peace. Peace that feels strange at first. Peace that feels wrong because you are so used to chaos. But it is genuine peace. It is the peace of someone who finally left the game. Jung described this as part of the individuation process, the process of becoming who you really are by separating from the expectations and projections of others. You will lose people in this process. You will be misunderstood. You will be accused of coldness, of indifference, of cruelty. But you will find yourself, you will finally be respected. Not because you asked for respect, but because you stopped accepting disrespect. Studies from 2024 and 2025 on narcissism and ostracism revealed something important. Ostracism does not just affect narcissists in the moment. It can shape the development of their personality in ways that perpetuate future exclusion. This means your silence has lasting effects, not just in the moment when you do not respond, but in the way the narcissist processes relationships from then on. They will try every tactic to break your silence. The first is usually anger. They will attack you expecting you to defend yourself, expecting you to respond to the accusation, expecting you to enter the familiar game. When anger does not work, comes the victimization. Suddenly, they are the victim of your cruel silence. You are being abusive by not responding. You are hurting them with your indifference. When victimization does not work, may come love bombing. Suddenly they are the most loving person in the world. Promise change. Promise that everything will be different. Just need you to talk to them. Just need you to give one more chance. Just need to break the silence. Each of these tactics is a desperate attempt to bring you back to the game, because outside the game, they have no power. And silence keeps you outside the game. Silence is your protection. Silence is your shield. Silence is the only thing that works. Huberman spoke extensively about how the nervous system recovers from chronic stress. And this is exactly what happens when you finally stop interacting with the narcissist. The first step is the reduction of chronic cortisol. Every interaction with the narcissist triggers stress. Even when it seems like a normal conversation, You're in a state of hypervigilance. Your body knows that at any moment an attack may come. Your nervous system is constantly alert. This keeps cortisol chronically elevated. When you enter silence, you remove the source of stress. Gradually, cortisol begins to normalize. It may take time. Huberman mentions that NSDR and Yoga Nidra can significantly accelerate this process. 11 to 30 minutes of practice can significantly reduce cortisol levels. The physiological sigh also helps. 2 inhales through the nose, followed by a long exhale through the mouth. It is the fastest way to calm the nervous system in real time. But the most important thing is to maintain silence, because every time you break silence, you restart the cycle. Every response, every explanation, every attempt to make the other understand triggers stress again. Consistent silence is what allows healing, and healing is possible. The brain is neuroplastic. The patterns that were created can be undone, but it takes time and consistency, and silence is the foundation of all this. Researchers in 2024 and 2025 discovered something fascinating about the relationship between narcissism and ostracism. There is a cycle that perpetuates itself infinitely. The narcissist acts in ways that cause genuine rejection from people around them. This rejection intensifies narcissistic traits as a defense mechanism. The intensified traits cause more behavior that generates more rejection. And the cycle continues, getting stronger each time, getting more destructive each time. But here is what is interesting for you. While you continue responding, you are part of this cycle. Your responses are fuel. Even your defensive responses. Even your attempts to protect yourself, everything feeds the system. When you enter silence, you remove your fuel from the cycle. The cycle continues, but without you. And for you, this means freedom. Freedom from the role you were playing. Freedom from the toxic dance that never had an end. Freedom to be who you really are instead of who the narcissist needed you to be. Jung observed that many people spend their entire lives reacting instead of acting. Their lives are a series of reactions to what others do. Never genuine choices. Never their own movements, always responses. Silence breaks this pattern. It takes you out of reactive mode and places you in choice mode. You are no longer reacting to the narcissist. You are choosing not to participate. And this choice is the beginning of a life that is genuinely yours. Huberman explained extensively how the brain changes in response to repeated experiences. This works both ways. Repeated negative experiences create neural circuits that perpetuate suffering, but repeated positive experiences create circuits that perpetuate well-being. When you were constantly engaged with the narcissist, your brain was being shaped by this engagement. The stress circuits were being strengthened. The hypervigilance patterns were being deepened. Anxiety was becoming your default state. When you enter silence, you interrupt this process. The stress circuits stop being constantly activated. Gradually, they weaken. New circuits of peace and security can be formed. This does not happen overnight. Neuroplasticity takes time. Huberman mentions that significant changes generally require consistency for weeks or months. But every day of silence is a day of healing. Every hour without responding is an hour of reconnection with yourself. Every moment of peace conquered by silence is a moment that rewrites your brain. Science is clear on this. You can heal, you can recover, you can return to being who you were before all this toxic dynamic. But it starts with silence and is maintained with silence, consistently, day after day, until silence is no longer a conscious choice, but simply who you are. After maintaining silence long enough, something surprising happens. You realize you no longer need silence as a weapon. It becomes simply who you are. It is not that you are choosing not to respond. It is that responding simply no longer makes sense. The narcissist stops occupying space in your mind. Their provocations stop affecting you. Their manipulation attempts seem transparent and pathetic. You look at them and feel no anger, feel no hurt, feel no need for revenge or justice. You feel something much more powerful, genuine indifference. Jung called this shadow integration in the context of relationships with narcissists. When you finally stop reacting, you stop feeding the pattern, and when the pattern is not fed, it dies. Not their narcissism. That probably continues, but the power they had over you, that dies completely. and in its place something new emerges. You emerge. The real you that was hidden behind all the reactions and explanations and attempts to be understood. The you that does not need validation from someone who will never validate you. The you that finds value in yourself, not in the reactions of others. The you that is finally free. There is a moment in the life of every highly sensitive person when they discover a paradoxical truth. The truth that the most powerful weapon they possess is the one they never used. Silence. Jung said that in silence there is a power that most people never discover. The power not to participate, the power to refuse the game, the power to simply not be available. For the highly sensitive person who spent their life trying to be heard, this is a transformative revelation. You were conditioned to believe that communication solves everything. That if you explain well enough, people will understand. That vulnerability creates connection. That emotional honesty is always the right answer. And with healthy people, this is true. But the narcissist is not a healthy person in this sense. For them, your communication is work material. Your vulnerability is weakness to exploit. Your emotional honesty is a map of how to destroy you. Silence closes all these doors at once. You do not need to be heard by everyone, especially not by someone who will never really listen. Your silence is not weakness. It is the purest form of strength. It is the silent declaration that you chose yourself. Chose your peace. Chose not to feed the monster with your words anymore. Neuroscience proved what Jung intuited. Silence activates real pain in the narcissist brain, the same regions that process physical pain. It is something they cannot ignore or manipulate. Huberman showed how your nervous system can heal when you remove the source of stress. And silence is that removal. If you are in a relationship with a narcissist or recovering from one, know this. Your words were never the problem. Your explanations never failed. Your communication was never insufficient. The problem is, you were playing a game that cannot be won with words. The only way to win is to stop playing. And silence is how you stop. You do not need to announce, do not need to explain, do not need to give reasons. You simply stop responding. And in that silence, you find something you were searching for all along, yourself, whole, at peace, finally free. Remember this. The narcissist spent their life mastering the game of words. They know exactly how to manipulate every phrase that comes out of your mouth. But they never learned to play against silence, because silence has no rules, has no weak points, has no gaps to exploit. Silence is absolute and devastating, and yours. Use it.